Hello, beautiful listeners, and welcome back to Green Earth Essentials, the podcast where we explore the connections between wellness, sustainability, and the hidden systems shaping our lives. I'm your host, Michelle Jackson, and today we're diving into a topic that's as common as the bread on your table and as controversial as modern agriculture itself: glyphosate and the world of pesticides. You've probably heard the name Roundup before. It's the best known brand that contains glyphosate, the most widely used herbicide on Earth. It's sprayed on farms, parks, even backyards. But what exactly is it? Why do we use it so much? And what are the ripple effects on our health, our food, animals, and the environment? Let's find out. Glyphosate is a type of pesticide, specifically an herbicide, which means it targets plants. It works by blocking an enzyme pathway called the shikimate pathway. Humans don't have this pathway, which is one reason industry has long claimed it's safe. But here's the twist. Many bacteria, fungi, and plants do use this pathway. And since our bodies are home to trillions of bacteria, our microbiome, the question becomes, does glyphosate affect us indirectly through them? Pesticides come in other flavors too. Insecticides target bugs, fungicides target fungi, rodenticides target, you guessed it, rodents. But glyphosate has become the poster child because of how much we use and how deeply it's woven into our food system. Glyphosate isn't just popular, it's revolutionary. Farmers love it because it's cheap, effective, and made large-scale farming more efficient. With the invention of genetically modified Roundup-ready crops in the 1990s, farmers could spray entire fields of corn, soy, or cotton, killing the weeds but leaving their crops unharmed. It also enabled what's called no-till farming, where soil isn't constantly plowed and turned. That's better for soil structure and erosion control. On paper, glyphosate looked like a miracle solution, but like many miracles, it came with fine print. This is where the story gets messy. Studies have found glyphosate residues not just on the farm, but everywhere: on fruits and vegetables, in grains like wheat and oats, in drinking water, and even in human urine samples. In other words, exposure isn't limited to people spraying it in fields. It's become part of our everyday environment. Back in 2015, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, part of the World Health Organization, classified glyphosate as a probable carcinogen, pointing to studies linking it to non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, a type of blood cancer. That decision sparked a firestorm because regulatory agencies like the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency and the European Food Safety Authority still maintain that at typical dietary levels, glyphosate is unlikely to cause cancer. Critics argue that these agencies rely too heavily on industry-funded studies, while independent research sometimes paints a more worrisome picture. But cancer is only one piece of the puzzle. Researchers are also asking, what about the microbiome, the trillions of bacteria in our gut that influence everything from digestion to immunity to mood? Remember that glyphosate works by blocking the shikimate pathway in plants. Humans don't have this pathway, but many of our gut microbes do. Early research suggests glyphosate exposure might disturb microbial balance, potentially fueling inflammation, reducing beneficial bacteria, and even playing a role in conditions like celiac disease and irritable bowel syndrome. There's also growing interest in glyphosate's possible role as an endocrine disruptor. Endocrine disrupting chemicals can interfere with hormones, which regulate growth, reproduction, metabolism, and stress response. Animal studies suggest glyphosate and its commercial formulations may alter reproductive hormones, sperm quality, and even fetal development. The effects aren't fully mapped out in humans, but the potential is concerning, especially when exposure begins in childhood. Another unanswered question is what happens with chronic, low-dose exposure over decades. Unlike acute poisoning, this isn't about a single large exposure, but the slow drip of glyphosate from food and water. Some scientists warn that even if levels are individually safe, the cumulative impact, especially alongside other chemicals, might still create long-term risks we don't yet understand. All of this uncertainty has spilled into the courtroom. Tens of thousands of lawsuits have been filed by people who believe glyphosate exposure contributed to their cancer. Juries in several high-profile cases have sided with the plaintiffs, awarding billions in damages, which Bayer, the company that bought Monsanto, has since appealed or settled. These cases underscore how deeply public trust has eroded, with many people unwilling to wait for regulatory bodies to settle the science. So, glyphosate sits in a gray zone, hailed by some as a safe and essential farming tool, flagged by others as a subtle but serious health threat. The truth may lie in the details of dosage, timing, and individual vulnerability, but until we know more, it's a chemical that deserves close scrutiny. It's not just about people. Glyphosate has wide-reaching effects on the animal world. When it washes off fields and lawns into streams, rivers, and wetlands, it doesn't just disappear. Amphibians like frogs and salamanders are particularly vulnerable because their skin is so permeable. They absorb chemicals directly from the water. Some studies have shown that glyphosate-based formulations can cause developmental abnormalities in tadpoles or even increase mortality rates. Fish exposed to contaminated waterways may also experience stress, slower growth, or changes in reproductive health. Even closer to home, pets can be at risk. Dogs and cats that roll around or walk on treated lawns can absorb glyphosate through their paws, fur, and skin. Research has even suggested that dogs living in households with frequent lawn herbicide use have a higher incidence of certain cancers like lymphoma and bladder cancer. While correlation doesn't prove causation, it raises serious questions about long-term exposure for our four-legged companions. Then there are pollinators, the creatures we depend on for one out of every 3 bites of food. Bees, butterflies, and other insects are more directly threatened by insecticides such as neonicotinoids, but herbicides like glyphosate affect them indirectly. Glyphosate wipes out wildflowers and other weeds that provide nectar and pollen. Fewer flowering plants means less food for pollinators, which weakens colonies and reduces biodiversity. Some research also suggests glyphosate may interfere with honeybees' gut microbiota, impairing their ability to fight pathogens and navigate back to their hives. And pollinators aren't the only insects impacted. By removing diverse plant life from the landscape, glyphosate reduces habitat for countless small species, spiders, beetles, moths, and beneficial predatory insects. These creatures form the base of the food chain, feeding birds, bats, and small mammals. In this way, the effects of glyphosate ripple outward, weakening the web of life that supports entire ecosystems. So, while glyphosate was designed to kill weeds, its reach is much broader, from frogs in streams to the dog in your backyard, to the bees that pollinate your garden. Its impact reminds us that chemicals don't stay where we spray them. They move through living systems in complex and sometimes surprising ways. Glyphosate doesn't just vanish once it's sprayed. While it binds to soil particles fairly quickly, it lingers there, sometimes for weeks or even months, depending on conditions. In that time, it can influence the living community beneath our feet. Soil isn't just dirt, it's alive, teeming with bacteria, fungi, nematodes, and tiny arthropods that recycle nutrients, build structure, and support plant roots. Some studies show that glyphosate can disrupt these microbial communities. For example, beneficial fungi that help plants draw in nutrients may decline, while certain harmful microbes may become more abundant. Over time, these shifts could weaken soils, making crops more dependent on synthetic fertilizers and creating a cycle of chemical dependency. Critics argue this undermines the long-term resilience of farmland, reducing its natural fertility. There's also the problem of resistant weeds. As glyphosate use has skyrocketed, more and more superweeds have evolved to survive it. Farmers often respond by spraying higher doses or combining glyphosate with other herbicides, which only increases chemical pressure on soils and ecosystems. It's a treadmill effect. more chemicals to solve the problems caused by earlier chemicals. And then there's our food. Independent testing by groups like the Environmental Working Group and universities has found glyphosate residues in oats, wheat, chickpeas, lentils, and even popular breakfast cereals and snack bars marketed to children. Some of these foods aren't sprayed directly, but are exposed during harvest as a drying agent. Farmers sometimes spray glyphosate on crops right before harvest to make them dry evenly. Regulators insist these residues are far below official safety thresholds, but scientists and health advocates point out two key problems. First, safe levels are often based on adult exposure, not sensitive populations like children or pregnant women. Second, most testing looks at single chemicals in isolation, not the cumulative impact of chronic low-dose exposure combined with all the other pesticides and additives in our modern diet. It raises a difficult question. Even if each exposure is technically safe, what happens when you add them all up across years and generations? The answer isn't fully known, and that uncertainty fuels public concern. So when we talk about glyphosate in soil and food, we're really talking about more than one chemical. We're talking about the health of ecosystems, the resilience of our farmland, and the trust we place in the food system that nourishes us. One of the biggest unintended consequences of glyphosate use is the rise of what farmers call superweeds. When you spray the same herbicide over millions of acres year after year, some weeds inevitably survive. Those survivors pass along their resistant traits, and before long you've got pigweed, water hemp, or ryegrass that laughs in the face of glyphosate. In the United States alone, more than 15 weed species are now resistant. Those plants can grow taller than a person, clog up combines, and choke entire fields. To fight back, many farmers increase their spray rates or mix glyphosate with other herbicides like dicamba or 2,4-D. This has led to new problems. Dicamba, for instance, is notorious for drifting in the wind and damaging neighboring crops, orchards, and even backyard gardens. It's become a kind of chemical arms race between human innovation and nature's adaptability. And so far, nature seems to be holding its own. But the story doesn't stop at the farm gate. Glyphosate doesn't always stay where it's applied. Heavy rains can wash residues into ditches, streams, and rivers, where it makes its way to lakes, wetlands, and even groundwater. Once in aquatic systems, glyphosate interacts with algae and microbes in ways scientists are still trying to fully understand. One ripple effect is the contribution to algal blooms, those thick mats of green or blue-green slime you sometimes see coating lakes. While fertilizers are the main driver because of the nitrogen and phosphorus they contain, glyphosate can also play a role by altering microbial competition and favoring toxin-producing cyanobacteria. These blooms not only suffocate aquatic life, by depleting oxygen, but can also release toxins harmful to fish, wildlife, pets, and even people. Ecosystems are delicate webs, and when glyphosate trims out one part, like the diverse weeds and wildflowers that once grew between crop rows, it sets off a cascade. Fewer plants mean fewer insects, which means less food for birds and small mammals. Streams stripped of plant life around their banks lose habitat for amphibians and invertebrates. Over time, what looks like clean farmland can actually be an impoverished landscape, biologically speaking. So, while glyphosate has saved farmers time and money in the short term, the environmental tab keeps growing. Resistant weeds, chemical drift, polluted waterways, and weakened ecosystems are all part of the hidden costs. And just like with human health, the concern isn't about one field or one season. It's about what happens when these patterns repeat across millions of acres year after year. It doesn't have to be this way. Around the world, farmers, gardeners, and researchers are proving that it's possible to grow abundant food without leaning so heavily on glyphosate and other chemical crutches. The guiding principle is regenerative agriculture, a philosophy that sees soil not as a factory floor to be managed, but as a living ecosystem to be nurtured. Regenerative practices focus on building soil health, encouraging biodiversity, and working with natural cycles instead of against them. Crop rotation, for instance, prevents pests and diseases from gaining a foothold and helps replenish nutrients in the soil. Cover cropping, planting rye, clover, or legumes between harvests adds organic matter, prevents erosion, and naturally suppresses weeds. Mulching provides a physical barrier to weed growth while feeding the soil as it decomposes. Another powerful tool is animal integration. Grazing livestock like sheep, goats, or chickens can cycle nutrients back into the soil while controlling weeds and pests. This mimics how ecosystems function in the wild, where animals, plants, and microbes form a dynamic balance. In places where regenerative grazing has been tried, farmers report not only reduced need for herbicides, but also healthier soils that hold more water and store more carbon. Integrated Pest Management, or IPM, takes a different but complementary path. Instead of reaching for chemicals first, farmers rely on a toolbox of strategies, planting pest-resistant crop varieties, encouraging beneficial insects like ladybugs and predatory wasps, using mechanical methods like weeding or flaming, and carefully timing planting to avoid peak pest seasons. Chemicals are still used, but only as a last resort and often in lower doses. And then, of course, there's organic farming, which prohibits synthetic herbicides like glyphosate altogether. Instead, organic growers rely on a mix of cultural practices, natural products, and old-fashioned labor to manage weeds. While organic systems can be more labor-intensive, studies show they can build healthier soils. support more biodiversity, and even match conventional yields in the long run, especially during drought conditions. Beyond the farm, new technologies are also joining the mix. Robotics and precision agricultural tools are being developed to mechanically weed fields with laser guided accuracy, reducing the need for chemicals. Some innovators are even looking back to traditional methods such as intercropping, growing multiple crops side by side, which confuses pests and maximizes the use of space and nutrients. The beauty of these alternatives is that they aren't just about weed control. They're about rethinking agriculture as a whole, about creating systems that are resilient, self-sustaining, and capable of feeding people while also healing the land. They remind us that farming doesn't have to be a battle against nature. It can be a partnership. Glyphosate is also a political and legal battlefield. Some countries like Germany and Austria have announced plans to phase it out. Others defend its use as essential for feeding billions. Meanwhile, Bayer has faced tens of thousands of lawsuits from people claiming glyphosate exposure gave them cancer, leading to billions in settlements. The debate is about more than just one chemical. It's about the future of agriculture. Do we double down on technology and chemistry to feed a growing population? Or do we shift toward more ecological methods that might be slower but more sustainable? Thanks for joining me today on Green Earth Essentials. If you enjoyed this episode and want to support the show, check out our Patreon at patreon.com/Green Earth Essentials. Every contribution helps me keep bringing you these deep dives into the green threads that connect us all. Until next time, may your food be clean, your soil be rich, and your choices be rooted in awareness. This is Michelle Jackson signing off.